you love all the words flying around and then you take the action? Batman, the Caped Crusader, the Dark Knight, the world's greatest detective. Batman's secret identity, of course, is Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is a wealthy American playboy, philanthropist, and owner of Wayne Enterprises. After witnessing the murder of his parents, Dr. Thomas and Martha Wayne, as a small child, he swore vengeance against criminals on an oath tempered by a sense of justice. He works for Commissioner Gordon, right? Wayne trains himself physically and intellectually and crafts a bat-inspired persona to fight crime. So that's our superhero today. And I like this old series. I grew up with it, right? But the new genre is a little darker, isn't it? If you've seen any of the new stuff, it's really the Dark Knight stuff, and it's a little more violent than our sock pal, biff, oomph, whatever that all stuff was. So I like that, and it's colorful, and I like the words that pop up. We don't see the violence, we just read the words about it, and it's a little easier to take. So Batman is a very interesting superhero because he doesn't possess any of those superpowers like Superman. We talked last week. He could fly, he was strong and all that stuff. Batman has taken his human strength and built that up through his study and his intellect and through his physical prowess, as they say. That is what he has done with his detective skills and so forth. And they say that his fear, his psyche, and his mind represent his greatest strengths. But don't they also represent his greatest weakness? Don't they also represent his greatest weakness? And so we know that not only is our physical strength important, but our mental strength is as well. And we know the power of our words because we see what words can do. Words can destroy friendships, businesses, relationships. Words can heal. Words can teach. Words can make us feel compassion. Words can make us feel love. Words are quite an amazing tool that we have available to us. And words can be a double-edged sword, can't they? Words can be a double-edged sword. They can heal or harm. They can build up or tear down. The double-edged sword. That's a metaphor that started many centuries ago, and it's said that it was started in the Arabic world, in the Arabic language, and then brought into English in the 15th century. But if we go back to the Bible even further, we find it in both the Old and the New Testament. We find it in the New Testament in Matthew 12:37, where Jesus said, "For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." And doesn't that speak to his ministry? His ministry was teaching love and truth, and he was condemned for teaching love and truth. So it really spoke to his ministry as well as to how we can use words in our own life. And of course, in the very first book of the Bible, of the Old Testament, in Genesis, the 3rd verse, they hardly get into it. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And this is a demonstration of the power of our words through the use of universal law and the power of creativity. Through the power of creativity. Ernest Holmes, the Science of Mind founder, the author of Science of Mind and the founder of our Centers for Spiritual Living, he bases the whole teaching on that simple idea, doesn't he? That we have the power to direct universal law. That we have the power to direct universal law, the law of our own lives, through our choices, through the power of our words, through the power of our beliefs. He tells us that through this creative process that we can direct this. We're all divine emanations of the one God. We all have that spark of life breathing us, beating our hearts. We have thought. We're all beautiful beings of light. And we talked last week how we each are born with those godlike qualities of life and love and creativity and peace and joy and beauty, intelligence, wisdom, layered with that layer of choice through which all of that blooms and blossoms in our life. And that layer of choice is our our perspective. It is the things that influence and impact us in our life and the decisions that we make, the filters that we ultimately filter our life through. The things that we ultimately filter our life through, that we choose to either protect or empower ourselves. Now think about that from the standpoint of the filters in your life as power, empowering you, or protecting you. Now we've talked about love in the recent weeks, being that we build a fence around our heart to protect ourselves from getting hurt by love on the outside again. But that frequently becomes a prison for our not allowing our love out. And the same with our filters. Is it an empowering filter, something that we're setting a boundary about perhaps, or is it a disempowering filter in our life? I love when I hear stories of siblings talking about things when they were growing up, an event. And I had this happen last summer when I was at home visiting with my family. My brother and sister and I were sitting around chatting about the old days. And it was really interesting. It's like, were you in the same car? Was this the same trip? What? No, that's not what happened. And all three of us had completely different perspectives of the same event and what happened and what occurred. Reason being, we were three different ages. We were in different positions in the car. We had different relationships with our parents and with each other. So we all had a completely different perspective of things that happened. And that's always so very interesting to me, is that we build our filters so young, and then we use those the rest of our life to filter our lives about how life works. You know, I've gone through my whole life thinking that situation happened a certain way. My brother's another way. My sister's another way. That's a filter we all built into our lives until we had this conversation. I don't know if any of us changed our mind, quite frankly. We all heard different versions of it, so it was kind of fun. So filters are kind of a fun thing in my life right now. I got, last summer when I moved into my new place, the air conditioning made a lot of noise, and I thought, oh boy, here we go. Got a problem with the air conditioning. So I called the tech to come out and check it, and he did, and he checked the system, and he said, it's fine. And I said, well, why does it make so much noise? It sounds like the motor's falling out up there or something. What's going on? And he said, it's your filter in the cold air return. Now, gentlemen, ladies, anybody that knows mechanical, I don't know anything about it, so I'm just prefacing that, okay? And so he says, no, your filter's too dense. Your filter's too dense. I said, okay, well, I was always told like those HEPA filter thingies or whatever were supposed to be the best kind. And he says, no, really it makes your system more inefficient. You need the thinnest, skinniest, most porous filter you can get to allow more air to flow to allow it to be more efficient. Well, that's totally against my paradigm. Totally against my belief. I'm like, well, that's not what okay. All right, I'm going to trust you. So I changed the filter out. You can read the newspaper through this thing, right? Changed the filter out. And it did get quieter. Now, I don't know if it got more efficient, but it did get quieter. But now my new belief is that all the allergens and the dust and the this and the that and all that stuff's coming in the house. Oh my gosh. So now I have this limiting belief about that filter, right? So of course now I'm searching for a happy medium filter, but anyway, that's another story. But I recognize my limitations in understanding my own mechanical system in my home, and that was an interesting little belief system to witness for myself as well about the filters and what he said as a professional technician and what my beliefs were, which may or may not be true actually. So anyway, the noise stopped, I'm a happy camper again. So what do we do though? What do we do when we find out a belief doesn't serve us? Maybe something a little more important than your air conditioning filter, but a belief that doesn't serve us. Can we change our filters like I did? Can we just change our filters that we've had? You know, the story with my siblings, we changed some filters because we heard different iterations, different versions of those stories. We changed some filters. So can we change filters in our life when we recognize that something's no longer serving us? Well, the science of mind, that's the beauty of this teaching, is that it teaches us many tools that we can use and apply in our life for changing filters. That's the cool thing about it. It's an applicable teaching. So one of these tools I'm going to suggest today is the power of our words. And we talk about the creative process a lot. And we use our teaching symbol in the science of mind. The seed, the soil, and the plant, right? It's a simple demonstration of how the creative process works. The seed, of course, being the idea, the soil being the universal law, and the plant being the seed in form, the manifestation that we see in form. And it's really the experience of the form that we're looking at. It's really the experience of the form that we're looking at. And we say that we can empower our words. If I'm planting a seed, a watermelon seed, am I going to get roses? No. And you know, I teach in classes sometimes that the seeds that we plant are wrapped up in BS, our belief system, right? They're wrapped up in our belief system. So when I plant a seed of love, it's wrapped up in my belief system, and I'm going to get love that is all about my belief system, right? And it may not look like what I think it's going to look like, because maybe I don't know about all those beliefs that I had that I planted. So instead of getting watermelons, I'm getting roses. So that's how that thing works. So when we can use the power of our words as that idea, as that seed, and we can recognize, like Craig's saying, we can recognize that power in our words and what our intention is and what we're planting and so forth, then we can begin to be much more proactive in the creation of our life experience. So one of the ways that we can do that, when I was home again, I was, this year, I was listening to conversations around me. Now, the people that were there were family that I've known all of my life, and some new ones that are new to the family, and also some friends that I've known for a very, very long time too. And it was very interesting to me to listen to these conversations and listen to the dialogue amongst everyone. And to recognize that, wow, I don't think what you just said is going to get you the result that you want. Yeah. And then to watch the resistance come up in the other person, or to watch the different reactions, and it was quite fascinating to watch this, and then to watch my own mind. And I wasn't in judgment about it. I just found it very interesting. I found it very interesting to witness this and to recognize the power of our words in our conversations. So something like, somebody brings an idea. I've got an idea, let's do this. Remember our resistance talk? No. Nah. It's not going to work. It's never going to work. Well, then that person shuts down, and that idea, if I'm coming to you and I'm presenting you with an idea, and you're just telling me, no, it's not going to work, what happens? My mind immediately goes to my ego. You don't understand what I'm talking about. I have to explain it louder, faster, give you more words. No, I have to be right. I have to get up in my ego, and I have to explain it to you so you understand what I'm talking about, because you couldn't possibly understand if you're disagreeing with me, right? When we're trying to present ideas. So rather than that, what if instead of saying no when someone presents an idea, we become inquisitive, we inquire, we ask questions, we seek to understand, and open that up, because their idea could be a passing thought, right? Well, I wasn't really attached to that anyway. And they let it go. But if we enter into resistance and telling them they're wrong, they're going to fight for it whether they want it or not. It's our human nature to do that. So in conversation, if we open that up and receive the idea and be inquisitive about it, we'll have a different conversation, we'll have a different relationship with that situation. So resistance sets the stage for conflict. Would you agree? Resistance sets the stage for conflict, with that ego getting involved. A friend of mine was talking about this talk on Friday, and she said, oh, I have $1 million question. I said, what's that? She says, my $1 million question has saved many, many relationships. She said, that $1 million question is, have you considered? Would you consider? Just prefacing it with that opens it up, doesn't it, to dialogue as opposed to that idea of resistance? Would you consider? Have you thought about? Asking a question opens us up to dialogue and exploration and being inquisitive as opposed to that just stopping us in our tracks. Yeah. Another common foible that we see is when someone is seeking appreciation. Now, appreciation is one of the 5 love languages, I believe, for those who've read that book. And appreciation is something that we all really crave at a deep level. To be appreciated, to be acknowledged, right? So when someone comes and says, oh, let's see, I cleaned out the garage, I changed the oil, I rotated the tires.
So what?
Exactly, right? Exactly. It's like, well, I changed the sheets and I did the laundry and I cleaned out the pantry and, right? We do the one-up stuff as opposed to simply appreciating. And wow, what a conversation, right? The other person feels deflated, like they're not, because that's what we're saying. You're not important, I'm more important than you are. So communication, the power of our words, my goodness. A simple, thank you, that's awesome. That's awesome. Another one, demand statements. I heard a few of these at home. We won't talk about that because they might watch, but I heard a few of these at home. And it was really interesting because they're shocking, and they were shocking for me. Take out the trash. What? And it feels like a demand, doesn't it? And what happens? Resistance. It's like, you're not the boss of me, right? So this is the kind of stuff that goes on in our head. The kind of stuff that goes on in our head. Instead of saying, would you help me? Can I get your assistance? Has anybody ever come to you and asked you to help in a genuine manner and you said no? Right? So it's our language, it's our words, it's the power in our words that can create such harmony and flow in our lives, or such havoc and resistance and struggle and pain. And I have to confess my all-time favorite, and I did get busted on the door with it last week myself, so I'm gonna confess. And it is, I just became familiar with this about a year or two, no, 4 years ago, I guess now. And it is the phrase, I'll let you do that. I'll let you do that. Now, some of us it's not a hot button for. My brother-in-law, it was. And my sister said it all the time. Well, I'll let you do that. I'll let you do this. I'll let you do that. And it was just a mannerism in the way that she spoke. But what was he hearing? I need your permission to do anything. Right? That's what he was hearing, because in his family growing up, that's what it meant. And our family didn't mean that. It was just a Southern expression that we used, like I'm fixing to. Right? It's just a Southern expression that we used. So when they finally had a conversation about this, it was, okay, clean up the language, right? Just clean up the language. Clean up the language, let it go. So it's not a matter so much of what we say as what they hear, and our obligation is that conversation, isn't it? If they had had this conversation 30 years ago, think of how little angst would have been in him around that. You know what? When you say you'll let me do something, do you know what I hear? I hear that I need your permission. Isn't that funny? Can we change that a little bit? Have a little different language? Yeah. And over time, the habit would change. So we have an obligation as the one feeling about the words to share how we're feeling. Because, although I've tried for years to get people to read my mind, it's just not happening, so I really have to speak words to let them know my feelings. I really have to speak those words. Communication is key, isn't it? So the words create our experiences, and we can choose to empower the words with more love, more joy, more compassion, more kindness. We can choose that. It's part of that layer of choosing that we talk about. We can do that. And let's go back to Batman. our Caped Crusader, our Black Knight. Remember the original thing with the words, all the words coming up? What if we had words or bubbles pop over our head every time we had a thought? Ooh, right? No. Or even when we're talking. Have you ever been in a big way of talking and someone goes, "What'd you just say?" You go, I don't know what I just said. Happened to me yesterday. I'm telling some tale. And somebody went, what? And I realized that I had gone unconscious in that moment, that I wasn't fully present in the conversation. Yeah. We can do that. So those little bubbles, if we had those sentences above our head, we could go back, oh, that's what I was saying that. Oh, okay. Yeah. So our words have power to steer our lives. We steer universal law, and the law resides within us, doesn't it? We talked back in January, when Glenn and I were sharing the stage here and doing our talk about what we believe. And we talked about our soul being that place of universal law within us, because it's how the law acts through us as individuals. And that is, again, that seed and the power of our words, our thoughts, and our beliefs. That's how that works. So which way are you going? Which way are you steering your life? Another way to look at that is, how are you limiting your life through your words? Are you creating any limitations in your life through the words that you're using currently? Ernest Holmes, the founder, again, says in The Science of Mind, the textbook, he says, God's creative power of mind is right here. We've all heard the cliche, there's no place that God is not. And that's true. All of God is everywhere all the time. It's like, not distracted over here and distracted over this. It's like everywhere, always, all the time. And we have as much of this power to use as we believe in and embody. The word that we speak is the law of our lives, and nothing hinders its operation but ourselves. Nothing hinders its operation but ourselves and our beliefs. We may use this creative word for whatever purpose we desire, and this word becomes the law unto the things for which it was spoken, and we are given the power to sit in the midst of our lives and direct their activities. That's powerful. We are given the power to sit in the midst of our lives and direct their activities. My goodness. And the power of our word is one of the ways that we do that. It's one of the ways that we do that. That's why our affirmations are so powerful. So clarity of communication, I think, is the starting point to peace in our relationships, both our interpersonal relationships, our community, and our global society. Clarity of communication. How many wars have been started just because of misunderstanding? How many family battles have been started because of a miscommunication, a misunderstanding? The power of our words. It's huge. It's huge. So I believe that cleaning up our language is one of the most important and critical things that we can do. One of the most empowering activities that we can take is to pay attention to our language, to pay attention to what we say, to be intentional with it. That will help us to grow spiritually, emotionally, and empower all of our relationships. So I want to move into our practicing the principles. And that's how we apply this in our life this week, and how we might be able to empower our words and our conversations starting today and going forward to plant better seeds, so to speak. Number one is listen to others and notice the conversation. Much like I did on my recent trip, sometimes it's easier to hear others. They can be our teachers. We can hear others before we hear ourselves. We can begin to understand what some of those language things are, some of those words are, and see how they're not maybe getting the results that they perhaps would rather have in their lives. Number two is pay attention to what you are thinking and what you're saying. So pay attention to yourself. Hear your own words. Listen to your own thoughts. Remember those negative thoughts that I had in the beginning? Can't do anything right. You know, what's the mantra that plays in your head when there's a mistake, an accident, a stumble? What's the mantra that plays in your head? Turn that around. Cut yourself some slack. Give yourself a break. Give yourself a pat on the back. Ernest Holmes, change your thinking, change your words, and watch your life change, right? You all know that I kind of started in this whole empowerment thing with Zig Ziglar back in the 80s. We talked about that. And one of the things that he taught was our positive attitude. And my family wasn't positive when I was growing up, so I didn't have that skill set. I was rather negative. And as I began to learn his teaching and began to practice it and to change my language, I watched my life change. So I know it works. I know it works. When we begin to change our words and our language, we begin to shift the patterns in our own mind to become more positive and optimistic in our outlook on life. You know, I loved his little thing, was a checkup from the neck up. You need a checkup from the neck up, you know? One of my managers I used to work for, I love her to death, she used to say, you can take your attitude and your purse and go home. Yeah? Just that simple. Take your attitude and your purse and go home. I was like, yes, But number 3, be intentional with your conversations with others. Be intentional with your conversations with others. Craig sang that this morning. I think he's mentioned my notes. Make conscious choices of the words and phrases and empower yourself and others. I've been practicing this a little bit this week, and I've had a couple of situations where people are actually, you know, because conversation's not flowing quite so fast, that banter's not going back and forth, because I've paused to really think about what it is I want to say and to be more conscious and intentional with it. It's like, what? What's wrong? What are you thinking? Right? Because we've broken that flow. It's like, well, no, I'm formulating what I really want to say here. I'm not just going to respond. I'm not just going to react to something. What do I really want to say here? What do I really want to contribute to this? So being conscious and intentional about it. Slow down. Think about what we're going to say. It's not about being the quickest on the response. It's about being the deepest on the response, the most heartfelt in the response. I don't know if you've heard of author Florence Scovel Shinn. She wrote that little book, The Game of Life and How to Play It. She was a metaphysical teacher and counselor back in the early 1900s, late 1800s maybe. And she has a phrase where she says, your word is your wand. Use them wisely. Your word is your wand. Use them wisely. I like that. So I invite you to try this week. Try being conscious and intentional with your conversation, with your words. See how it works in your life. You know those questions on Monday morning. How was your weekend? How are you doing? How are you feeling? What's going on? Try answering those intentional rather than great, good, and one-word responses sometimes. Try being a little more intentional and engaging. See what happens for you and for those that you're talking with. See if there's a different experience that occurs. So if you want your life to change your language. Consider your words as you speak them. Consider your words as you speak them. It's a way of being present in the moment, isn't it? It's a way of bringing ourselves to present in the moment. And we're conscious and intentional about the words that we speak. Yeah. Is it getting me closer to my goal, or is it pushing me away from it? Is it getting me closer to that thing which I desire? My favorite, am I communicating, or am I just talking? Know anybody that just talks? Yeah. Communicate versus talking. So are we creating resistance or connection, joy or fear? We can do all of this with the power power of our words. We do all of this with the power of our words. So superheroes, they put on masks and costumes, right, and capes and so forth, because they want to step out of their day-to-day identity into their super heroicism, is that a word? Their superhero persona, we'll say that. They want to step into that. That's why they put on these capes and masks and things, so that they now become that superhero. So is it time for us to maybe do that? With the power of our language and become the superhero within our own conversations, within our own languaging? Yeah. Because that is the superpower that we have. I'm going to say this, I think it's true. We're the only species that talks, really speaks English, or speaks language. I don't know. Is that true? Different conversation. So anyway, we can empower our lives through our words, our conversations, and being conscious and intentional in doing it. So I'm going to close out with a couple of things this morning. One is a quote from Les Brown. And Les tells us to be careful with your self-talk. Be careful with your self-talk. Without monitoring your mind and your mouth, the majority of what you say to yourself can poison your attitude, weaken your spirit, and drain your energy. Have you ever seen someone beat themselves up? Maybe you're in a conversation and they say something and then they begin to beat themselves up and you can see them physically go smaller. Have you ever had that experience? Yeah. Yeah. It's what happens, and that's what he's talking about here. It weakens your spirit and drains your energy. Negative self-talk does not support us. Be affirmative to yourself. And then I found a reading that I think is just beautiful, and it's from Emmett Fox. And I'm going to read this, and then it's going to lead us into our affirmative prayer this morning. And he titles it Love. And this is, for me, power of words, because it's a beautiful writing. I invite you to just close your eyes and relax, and then we'll move right into prayer from this. He says, there is no difficulty that enough love will not conquer. There's no disease that enough love will not heal. There is no door that enough love will not open. No gulf that enough love will not bridge. No wall that enough love will not throw down. No sin that enough love will not redeem. It makes no difference how deeply seated may be the trouble, how hopeless the outlook, how muddled the triangle, how great the mistake. A sufficient realization of love will dissolve it all. If only you could love enough, you would be the happiest and most powerful being in the world. So as we continue in this awareness of that healing power of love, we recognize that infinite power of the divine, that source of all that is, that light of the world, of the universe and beyond. We recognize that the all power is God, is source, presence, essence. It is all that is. It is this thing called love, and love is it. As is peace and harmony, balance and joy, wisdom, abundance, prosperity. It is all God, and it is all here now, present in this room, and in through as each one of us, as a manifestation of it. For we are all manifestations of that one, and we all have within us the qualities of that which we are made of. That one substance, the one source. We are wisdom, intelligence, love, joy, abundance, prosperity, peace. So from this place of knowing our absolute magnificence, I speak my word. And I speak it forward about each one of us this morning, knowing, claiming, and accepting that as we step into the recognition of this superpower that we have of our words and of our language, of the start of that creative process through the power of our word, I know that we are conscious, aware, and present to each and every word that we speak, and that they are intentional and empowered and empower our lives for more joy, more peace, more compassion, more kindness, more love. And I know, too, for anyone that has anything on their heart this day that they're seeking healing around, whether it's healing in finances, relationship, career, health, whatever it might be, I know that that is lifted into this loving light of this prayer in this moment, lifted into the activity of mind, and that the clarity and the healing and whatever is necessary is now present in that life as that healing force. And how grateful I am for this, knowing, for this healing of any and all issues and situations, whatever it may be that we're experiencing. I'm just so very grateful. Grateful for the manifestation of this prayer. Grateful for the knowingness, and grateful for the love in this room. As I just release it into the action of law, for I know that the word spoken is the law made manifest, is the word made manifest. I know that it is already done in the mind of God. We simply wait its expression in form. And so from that place, we just anchor and affirm this together by proclaiming. And so it is.